Welcome back to another episode of the Conscious Energy Officer Show. I'm your host, Grant Parr, with my co-host, Graham Betchart and John Costanzo. What's up, fellas?
What's up, G Money? How you doing, man? What's up,
Doing
John?
good.
What's
Doing
going on?
good.
Well, I want to welcome everyone again to our show. This is the Conscious Energy Officer Show. We do this show for police officers, and what we do is we have a whole bunch of cool mental skills, and we incorporate them into police officer work. With our goal being to create an awesome connection in the community and proactively empower folks with these skills. So we're grateful you're here. Our four main skills you'll hear us talking about all the time. We have our four foundational skills, and I'll just go over them really quick. The first one is what we call WIN, which stands for what's important now. And that means you got to focus on what's in your control. That's what's important now. And what's in your control eliminates like 99% of the stuff we focus on. And essentially what we can't control is ourselves, how we react, how we respond, what we do in the here and now. So the second skill is what we call playing present. And that means we got to be in this moment right now. This is the place to be, right? Where your feet are. You look down, see your feet. I got to be here. So often in life, we're pre-living or reliving, right? Instead of being really centered here and seeing what happens. So being present, playing present, policing present, super important. That's our second skill. Our third skill is what we call next play speed. That means being present is hard. Next play speed is, can you come back to the present when you lose your focus? We all get caught up in other stuff. Happens all the time, right? Next play speed is how well can you bounce back? How well can you come back to what's important now, back to where your feet are, back to the present, finding your breath, getting centered, right? That's our third skill. And the fourth skill is what we call palms down. This is choosing your response. Palms down is the opposite of this. Something happens in life. I'm reacting to something outside of my control. Palms down is about choosing your response. This is about emotional intelligence. This is about knowing how to de-escalate yourself. You notice I have these surfboards behind me. It's an analogy. We got to learn to ride the waves. We got to learn to ride the energy that's here in the now. We can't just go crazy like this with our body language. We choose our response, palms down. So those are our four foundational mental skills. And what we do every week is we bring it to John, and John kind of updates us on a few stories, brings up like a topic of the week, and we run it through our mental skills and have a great time. So thank you for coming to the show. And John, why don't you keep us rolling, man? How you doing?
Oh, great. Thanks. That was a great introduction. Today's pressure point, we're going to talk about de-escalation. It's a very hot topic in law enforcement. We're constantly going to scenes where it's like a moment of chaos for people, and there's a lot of high energy. And as officers, it's our job to, compose that scene, direct it, guide it, not control it, but guide it, right? And we know we do that with our energy. And so what I found with de-escalation, a lot of current training is how to de-escalate the scene. But what I found is when I'm in control and I've de-escalated myself because high energy may be coming at me and I bring it down, then I'm in control going into the scene. Therefore, it's very easy to guide the scene when I get there. So, which is a little different than what we're used to, but that's why we're doing this, right? Because it's that inner control. And like we talked about before in previous episodes, a lot of times the way the call goes out, the tone of the dispatcher's voice, the tone of the officer you might be backing up, the level of the call, like it's all heightening you up, going lights and sirens. It's all elevated energy, right? And so it's our job to get that inner control and bring it back down, right? We start with the first skill. What's important now? Realizing, is this a problem or a paradox, right? And a problem, just for the listeners, is you're choking, right? You got to do something, otherwise you're going to die.
Yeah.
You got to clear the airway. That's a problem. You have to act quickly, right? So action needs to be taken. A paradox is something that can feel like a problem, but it's not. And you can solve it through strategy and mindfulness, right? It's not going the way you want it to go. How do we work this out, right? Emotional intelligence, whatever we want to call it, that's what it is, right? And so once we understand the difference between problem and paradox, that's when we can really break it down with our inner control and then start to solve it, right? Am I in danger? Am I, you know, am I in a position where I might get hurt? And if the answer is no, you have a paradox, and then so we start to break it down and take our time, walk to win. No rush to solve this, but let's solve this, right? So it starts with the energy. So we go from what's important now, being fully present, which is the next skill. And then we enter palms down. It's very, very important. So I'll just give a quick story and then we could break it down even further. But one day I was going to a call. This one gentleman was running around the train system. He was aggressively panhandling with a knife. So he'd go up to people, hey, give me money, had a knife in his hand. We got multiple calls. We were trying to track him down, and we finally got him held in one spot, one station. The trains weren't moving. So I was going to be the first one there, but going to that, instantly you're heightened up a little bit. There's a weapon involved. You know this. So, and I knew this individual, and I knew this individual generally is a very excited individual. So when he has interaction with law enforcement, he goes to 100. So I knew that I needed to come even softer into this in order to guide and navigate the incident, the scene, right? Once I interacted with him. And so on my way there, I started to get tunnel vision, and I'm like, oh, palms down. I'm literally doing this, palms down, as I'm driving. And I'm just focusing on each intersection, each vehicle that I pass. Are they going to stop for me? Is this light green? If it's not, I need to pause at the intersection and then keep it moving. So as this is going on, information keeps coming out. And so it's quick, right? These things happen fast. And so I did a good job at that point de-escalating myself, finding that inner control before I even got there, knowing, okay, I've dealt with this individual before. So I get there, I get out of my truck and I start to run down the escalator, and then I pause and I'm like, wait a minute, this is a super long escalator. I'm going to be super winded by the time I get to the bottom of this thing, let alone find him. And we all know, you go run a half a mile, a quarter mile at a decent pace, you're going to be huffing and puffing a little bit. And how is your reaction going to be to somebody when you're huffing and puffing? You might be a little excited, right? You might be a little loud. You might be trying to catch your breath. So everything that comes out of your mouth is woo, and it's like you're bringing that energy, right? So I start to walk and I'm like, wait a minute, he's not going anywhere. He's not actively hurting anybody. Is this a priority for me to really run down there to stop a threat? No, there's no sign that he is actively hurting anybody, right? So I walk down the escalator. I'm like, it's cool. We're good. So I walk down there. I regain my inner control. And then I see him. He's running in and out of the trains. And I knew his name. I called out his name. He instantly turns and he's like, oh, here's the police, And so I was like, okay, let's have this conversation. I was like, hey, what's going on? Are you all right? And like we talked about before, I always start with a question. Are you okay? How can I help you? Like, what's going on? And so he came very excited. We got to a point of an understanding, and he was really shouting. And I said, all right, I'm just going to pause you for 1 second. I really want to hear what you have to say, but I cannot hear with how excited you are. I want to process everything you're saying. So if you bring it down just a little bit, I can understand what you're saying. I want to hear everything. And then so he does. He's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And then so he continues his story a little bit. So I know he's got a knife on him. And I don't see it, but I pause after he's calmed down even a little bit more. And I'm like, okay, listen, I understand that you have a knife on you, correct? And he goes, I do. I was like, okay. And then he goes to reach for it. I was like, no, don't do that. I was like, I'll get it. Okay. And he goes, okay. I'm like, where is it? He's like, it's in my pocket. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in your pocket. Okay. And he says, sure, no problem. I was like, is it open? Is there anything that's going to hurt me? He's like, no, it's closed. It's okay. No problem. And then I reiterated that again. All right, I'm going to go in your pocket now, just so he knows everything that's going on. I'm not here to trick you. I'm just trying to make this completely safe for me, right? For him. So I go in, I get the knife, and I secure the knife. And I'm like, okay, go ahead and continue what you were saying. And at this time, I'm waiting for backup. I'm not trying to put him in handcuffs. And I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm just letting the energy slowly come down, right? And I'm slowing my voice, I'm slowing down my speech, and I'm lowering my tone, and I'm really just pulling it back. And then so then backup shows up, and by then he was calm and cool. It's like, hey, listen, this is the situation. We're putting you in handcuffs. This is what's going on. He's like, okay, like just like that. And it was amazing to see, because it could have went completely a different route, especially knowing that the type of interactions he has with law enforcement. It that was a first for me at that time, and it was it was really cool to see. So that's how it went.
Man, so much. I'm thinking there's so much good stuff that is happening through that whole interaction. What are you thinking, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, the ability to just, first of all, catch yourself as you're running to it, knowing I'm already escalating it, and already just the amount of awareness that comes in to make sure when you're working on being present and how you're choosing your response to this thing, you're just kind of bringing yourself down the whole time. And I think a really big one is, as a conscious energy officer, right there, it is right there. You're realizing the energy that I bring to this gathering, situation, scene, whatever you call it, is paramount to how it'll affect it. And so it's just like really amazing to me. And that was, 8 minutes straight of explaining something. And that was like high level police work. That's what I hear. So when I think of like training, I'm like, man, think of how high level that was. And never did you have to get to any of your weapons. And right. I'm a crazy biased person, but I'm like, fuck, man, your greatest weapon is your mind. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm in the profession of mental coaching, right? So obviously I recognize a nuclear weapon when I work with the Navy. Obviously I recognize what the firepower. But in that situation, it was like, with all the tools you have on your belt and everything, it was like you went to this thing that was like, let me get to the energy. And I mean, there it is. And I'm not saying every situation plays out exactly like that, but it's amazing seeing that, because what I noticed that sports, the Navy, lawyers, surgeons, doctors, teachers, it's the same shit. That the energy that they come into a surgery with matters. The energy that you go into a trial with as a lawyer matters. As a teacher, the energy with which you have in the class matters. Huge. And so, man, that's what's to me, is how powerful that is. That like proactive de-escalation. Like you were de-escalating before you even were in the same physical space as someone else. Shit.
Yeah, it's like, as you were talking, downshifting, like, in a car, like as you heightened state, and then you're just down as you're moving closer to it, you were just downshifting by using these 4 principles. And it was really interesting, because I was thinking in my head, a car downshifting, that, in a lowrider, when it pumps up their car and they go boom, 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 and they come down. That's what it would seem like, but you were downshifting energy to maximize energy. And
that's powerful, man. And I didn't mean to, you even mentioned walk to win, and we always introduce the first 4 principles, right? What's important now, play present, next play, speed, and palms down. And there's we have another like 12 that really enhance those 4. And one of them is walk to win. And in this situation, you literally were walking to win. You slowed your body down. And it was like, in that case, it wasn't like hurrying to get there faster. It was slowing your body down, and walking meant you were starting to go into power, right? So walk to win, because we have a natural tendency under pressure, and it's far beyond police officers. Everyone feels it. To go fast when there's pressure on the line, to move quick when there's a certain outcome that you don't know what's going to happen. There's this want to get to that outcome quick. And it's that energy that kind of fucks up the outcome a lot of time. What's going to happen? It's like, no, you're messing it up, as opposed to, all right, let's go influence this outcome by being really focusing on our present, back to what we can control, and like what we bring to the table directly impacts how this all unfolds. So walking to win with lethal patience, we say. In that situation, you were walking to someone with a weapon, a known weapon like that, and you're so gracious with paradox versus problem. This might actually fall under the line of, you might have that's a problem, right? That's not, right? Potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
And so that's real. This isn't like a paradox. Potentially, this could be a problem, right? Absolutely. So you went in with that's real, and yet you brought it down to a paradox. You brought it down to, if I just get my energy right, walk to win. He was like, go ahead and take the knife. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
He's like letting you go into and do that in his person. So that, I mean, to me, this is a conscious energy officer. That's why I love this story so much, is it's really powerful. And the knife does make it really real, right? Then this isn't a game. You're like, no, man, this is real. And yet your energy work there in that moment seems like, now we know you can't control anything outside of you, but yet when you were controlling yourself doing this, looked as though like you had really high level control of the situation, right? Without like control, a totally different approach to control.
Yeah. And because, it can be a vulnerable place to be when you know that somebody may be in possession of a weapon. I didn't physically see it, but from the information that we were getting, that was my understanding. But for me, based on my experience, I like to actually confirm, what are we dealing with here? Because you get a lot of information. You get a look out of somebody that may not match fully how hard is that, right? If somebody commits a crime against you and you're like, well, what did they look like? Do you really fully remember? Usually it's a little bit off, right? So information, just like the telephone game, is not 100%. And so you have to go into it with a little bit of understanding and knowing that, just like when I shared the story of with Victory to the Vulnerable, about how quick that knife went by my head. I didn't expect that. And that's how quick knives can be used. I mean, I think they say it's like 22 feet. Somebody can stab you before you even get your weapon out.
Wow.
And yeah. And so that's they can close in real quick,
right?
So imagine you're 10, 15, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet away, and they have a knife on them. Like that's a vulnerable place to be. But what I found is when you're in control and you understand they might have fear, but if you're disarming that fear, you're in control, you're fully present, you see that danger coming. You already know, okay, if he goes in his pockets, because I know he has a knife, I'm going to grab his hands and I'm going to lock his hands down. He's not getting his hand out of that pocket.
Right.
Because then what is he going to do? You can't hurt me if that thing doesn't come out of your pocket. I don't visually see it. So that's my instant thought, is like, let's go hands on, Also having a reputation with the individual before, and I've de-escalated him before, the situation that he's been involved in. There was a little bit of, for me, I was like, okay, like, no problem. If it was somebody else, it may have not necessarily have gone that way. Every situation's different, but if you run through the core skills and then it's not really going the way, you can always create space. You can always take a couple steps back. If you feel like they're getting more heightened, you could back up, 22 feet, you could back up 22 feet,
right.
You could put a barrier in between you and them. How are they going to get past that? They're going to run into the barrier. So you just created more time for yourself to make a decision, because in this line of work, it happens so fast. It seems like a long time, but it's really happening quickly. So the more time you can give yourself, the safer you can make a scene. The more time you give for somebody to bring it down a little bit. It's not going to happen instantly, right? And what I find with this is there's two things where I get a sense that we focus on too much. It's control and outcomes. And those are two major things that we teach, you know. Our first one, control. What's in your control, right? Not other people.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and outcomes. You want to make it safe. But as we talked about before, safe is a relative word. I mean, we can't fully be safe, you know. So we're signing up to do this, and it's a risky job at times. And you know, you just have to use what's around you. Like, are there barriers? Can you create distance if it's not going, you know, the way you were hoping it would go, you know, with your energy? So, but yeah, all those things are so important, you know, to really bringing down the energy. Like Grant said before, composing the energy. Like, you're the composer. Like, let's bring it down from this to this, you know.
Yeah. That I think it's super, man. It's so well said. And you know, when we say like don't focus on results, and that's because we love results. And I'll finish off. Like, we love results so fucking much and actually want great results, that this is what we've figured out studying performance and mental training for decades, is that focusing on results fucks it up when you're thinking about getting results. So it's simple as that. So if you actually want to know how to get great results, we're getting it down to the essence of be aware of your energy. Right. And so we're not saying don't focus on results like we don't like results. We fucking love results. I'm in the results business. Like, that's all this is outcomes. But the whole thing is, if you really care about results, you have to fully drop all of that, get fully engaged in the present, and just work on your energy. And then the ability to sustain that and have the concentration and mental strength to do that for prolonged periods of time, you know, and to be able to sustain that day after day or moment after moment. That's where it comes in. So I just want everyone, like, we love results so much. It's just a trap to get, if you're thinking, got to get a certain result and I'm focused on stuff out of my control, you're going to heighten that situation fucking so fast.
Yeah.
Right? And pressure is so intense. And under pressure, now simple movements are tough, and you're misreading things, and you're not quite assessing what's really happening because you've heightened the whole situation. So the energy level is where we found, like, the irony. Like, you get great results, right? You de-escalate this whole scene, John. At the end, you're like, how'd you do it? Oh, I focused on my energy.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, like that. Okay, so then that becomes our primary focus.
Yeah, I mean, magic with the math. That's one of our skills, right? The magic is the energy. You have to have faith that your energy, what you bring to every scene, will bring the results. You don't even have to focus. You don't even have a thought on the results. The results will come when you're fully present and you have the right energy every time. I've yet to see it show any different.
Yeah.
Every time.
Shit. How's that for a result right there?
Exactly.
When you go, oh, won't do the results, do the energy thing. How do I do the energy thing? Now, the energy thing, what we're talking about, this is real fun. These are real skills. That's why you can be like really strong in this, because this shit is badass doing this shit. Like, learning to harmonize your energy, everything we're doing, this shit is badass. And you actually feel really powerful when you do it, because it takes a hell of a lot of courage and all of these things. It's a real workout, and that's why it's real. Right? You do feel powerful, but you're like powerful in the best way, not powerful in a scared, fearful, or angry way. You're powerful in the most wonderful, harmonious, like real powerful way. And
100%.
You know,
and I'll say this before we sign off today, is I know in real time as a police officer, I mean, it's a whole different energy. It's different. However, I encourage the police officers that are listening to this, practice harmonizing your energy, de-escalating situations in your life outside of work, because those are reps. So we all have significant others, if it's, you know, male or female. Sometimes we know our partners can get out of hand. We can get out of hand. You know, we can get triggered. So those are great opportunities. Friends, kids, maybe like coaches. Like, if there's any way that you can step in and get a rep to harmonize your energy and de-escalate, do that as much as possible, so it becomes second nature when you're actually in real time doing real police work.
Man,
Yep.
well said on that note. And I think that's probably a great place for us to wrap this week is listen, these are skills. This takes practice. And if you didn't know, John's been doing this work for years. I think, John, you've been doing mental training for over 10 years. We've been training with John extensively for over a year doing this. So like, this is real. The good news about this is when you practice it, it works. That's what I always loved. If you don't practice it, this shit is not going to work. And I love it that that's how it is, because that means it's totally doable. This isn't luck. This isn't hooey. This isn't born some way. This is once you're aware and you start practicing, this shit works. And if you keep practicing, of course you get better. Is there perfection in this? No. So we work on progress, right? That's all we do. So hang with it out there. That's why we built Max Conscious. That's why we created the Conscious Energy Officer program, is to create a real process that you can follow. And then we got to keep it real with you, though. You have to practice this shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no other way around. This isn't like a quick fix. You do the program for a couple months and then go back to the same shit. This is like a skill set you learn and then becomes how you live. And if you can find a good reason to not be present with your family or something like that, first of all, there is no good reason. So you want to do this with everything in your life. It's true. And maybe you haven't had a pathway before. There's a pathway now. And we're not saying we're the best pathway, but if we resonate with you with this, then we're here for you. You know, that's why we built this. So thanks for coming to the show, John and Grant. Amazing job, man.
An easy way to practice this is road rage, right? Somebody is in front of you. They're not getting out of the way. Why do we get excited?
There it is.
Right? We yell at them like they can hear us. They can't, you know? It's like, hey, it's all good. Palms down. So if they get out of the way, you get there 30 seconds faster. Is that really going to be the end? You know? No. So we had a class motto. It was slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that.
I like
slow
that.
is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what we're talking about here. Take your time. Walk to win.
There it is.
Slow down. All right, everybody. Good job.
Have a great week. See you next week.